What are you doing, Oliver?
Hi guys, welcome. This is my beautiful model Chelsea. So what I'm doing at the moment, really sort of salon friendly shape, a little bob with a graduation. So I'm not going to talk about what I've done, as you'll see that at the end. So I'm going to talk about what I'm doing. So diagonal graduation, I've put in a perimeter of a line, really quite strong, quite solid, and then I'm working diagonal sections. So that means they're slightly tilted. So you see my green comb here, as I spin them all around, you can see here, and I'm working up the head onto the previous. So I'll just do this section just so you can see, and I'm working my knuckles into the shoulder and my fingers are pointing out. So that means it's slightly fitted throughout the sort of perimeter of the line. So it's building weight. That's what we do with a graduated shape. It's all about building that weight. So I'm lifting, fingers point out, knuckles point in, and my next section will be onto the previous. I'm slightly going more horizontal as I work up the head. This is because the head is slightly rounded and I want to build that weight here. So next section, you can see this beautiful colour that's done by Josh, our colourist. So I'm working with that, as you can see, as I comb that, it looks stunning. And then I'm on to my previous guide here. A really sharp line, knuckles are pointing in, and my fingers are pointing out.
Do you tend to, would you change how your approach to a bob, Ollie, as regards coming vertically, horizontally, diagonally? Do you?
Yeah, so it's all about how much weight you want
what day of the week it is?
Yeah, a bit of that as well. It's definitely Monday evening, so it's looking a little bit heavier from the weekend. So it depends on, it's all about the hair texture and how much weight you want to remove. So vertical being the flatter the shape, horizontal being heavier. So the hair texture I've got this evening, it's beautiful hair, but it's slightly finer. So I want to go sort of in between that. So I'm pulling back the hair here, and you can see that's going to, I'm sort of over directing the hair. So it's maintaining length at the front.
It's quite nice, isn't it, to have that ability, the technical ability to be able to start from the front, the back, vertically, horizontally.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I've not made it easy for myself because I've done one side and then the other. I think in a salon-friendly environment, I would do both sides to get that balance. But for camera, I'm making it a little bit difficult for myself. I'm gonna, throw myself under the bus a bit and create a beautiful shape. Hopefully,
it's looking great
to get the balance right. So here, over directing, I've gone into more of a horizontal section, and I'm pulling back, and I'm combing the hair until it's super clean. So then we get a super clean line and we can see our guide, which is there. So we're over directing to maintain length towards the front, and we're building weight. So if I lift the hair here, and I'll show you my guide disappears, it's sort of gone, and the hair's a little bit, what we would say, baggy. It's not quite clean enough, so I need to make sure the hair is combed into the position, and then we cut.
So I think something that I'd like to just say for the evening, any questions will be called out. We've got Colin, our international creative director, on camera 1 and George on camera 2. We're going to be bringing Josh Karen, who's our head of colour, in to talk about the colour that he's done. But I think something just to say, if there's any questions out there at all, obviously this haircut can relate to any experience, I would say. You know, it's very much a classic, but it's important to get the classics right. So anybody, I would say, from beginner all the way through could benefit from some knowledge. So if there are any questions, feel free, please fire them out and we'll put those to Oliver. So over directing back here, Ollie.
Yeah, so you can see it combing the hair It's really nice to see that colour as well, isn't it? It's amazing.
Beautiful.
So I'm over-directing. As I'm stood as well, I'm sort of pulling the hair towards me. It makes it easier. So I'm not standing round, I'm not pulling the hair around it. Everything is coming back.
So that's one question I got for you, Oliver. Body position, important?
Very important.
Changes it?
Yeah, so you want to, depending on what shape you're trying to create, depends where you're stood. So I'm just stood off the shoulder. So I'm not quite rounded, I'm not quite square. So that diagonal shape. I'm trying to create that with my body, where I'm stood, where I'm sort of angling my fingers. That's super, super important. It's just going to make your shape easier to create. So as I brush the hair here, what you'll see, we comb it backwards and then we comb it forwards, and it will just go under beautifully. And you can see the colour. So give it a little tap, and we can see the graduation just coming alive a little bit. And that's the beauty of sort of graduation. You can see what's going on with your shape. I'm not damping the hair down too much, so I'm cutting it from wet to dry. So you can actually see the shape come alive.
That was my question there, Oliver.
Just answered that one.
Just answered that one. So you work the hair from wet to dry?
Wet to dry, yeah.
Reason being?
Again, you just see the hair as it comes alive. So you can see here where the graduation is. And that's sitting beautifully. Right, so what I'm going to do is refine the shape once it's dry. So I'm going to let this top down. This top is a little bit weaker. I'm not going to connect this in. I'm actually going to dry it and finish the haircut all dry. This side is a little bit stronger through here. So I've worked that side in wet, and you can see here it's just a little bit stronger. This side, again, with the texture of the hair, I'm going to use the points of the scissors. I'm going to do all this dry. Okay, so I'm going to apply a little bit of product and blow dry.
And what are you looking for with the blow dry? Ollie, are you going to be wrap drying? Are you looking for, any particular sort of telltale? You just want to encourage the shape you put in? Are you looking to change the shape of the blow dry?
Just encourage. So a flat wrap. We've got a nice vest brush, flat brush, and what I'm going to do is start at the back. I'm going to push everything forward and everything back. So what that does, it sort of irons out the hair, and it creates the shape that you want. So everything is cut geometrically, so the idea is that if you push the hair around the head, it will sit into the shape. And that is blow drying, that's what we do. It's super simple, very salon friendly. We're not trying to sort of distort the shape too much or do anything to it. We just want to work the natural flow of the hair and make it sit very, very naturally. You can see the air of the dryer is following the brush, or we're pushing the hair around the head. And that's pretty much for blow drying. We try and keep it as simple as that.
I think something that's really nice that I'd like to just talk about for a minute is that Oliver trained with Mahogany, man and boy, and it's a really nice thing to be watching him here doing this live, because we've seen the development, and so in Mahogany that's what we do. We believe very strongly of bringing our teams through. Obviously education is all done within, and it's bringing out the best in that person. It's educating and just nurturing and bringing out the best that we can. So here's the finished article. And Josh as well. Josh trained with the company. So it's great to see this future talent, because we believe very strongly that it's about the talent, about the future. And Georgia one day will be in this place as well. So every which way, Ollie?
Exactly, yeah. So just using the head just as a sort of, an ironing board really, just to stretch the hair out. But as this is drying, you can see it's really smooth sort of direction with the dryer, and I can almost just brush it into place.
And I guess you're watching the reaction of the hair along
Just
the way.
sit exactly like we want it. So it's cut into the shape and it's blow right into the shape. And be very, very gentle. The hair's been bleached, so we don't want to apply too much heat. We applied a little bit of sort of spray, the fleet, got heat protection in, it's quite light, very nice for coloured hair. And we don't want to be pushing it or pulling it too much after the hair's been coloured. We want to really look after it. But you sort of see some shapes behind you, some pictures. We had a little bit of inspiration from this one, which Colin did. Beautiful shape. And I think it's just a timeless classic, really, a bob. It suits anybody, very, very salon friendly. Never dates at all. It's just a beautiful thing.
I think what's nice as well here on that you've got this quite classic shape, but the colour really sort of picks through and actually makes it more modern in itself.
Yeah. And that's what we do. We work together very, very closely. So
How does that work, Ollie?
So mahogany, what we do is we specialise. So that means we zone in on a certain thing. So that could be your hair cutting, your hair colouring, technicians. And it means that you're sort of all 100% into one thing. So you're always going to get a fantastic result. We work very, very closely with our colourists here. So when we have a consultation with a model or with a client, we both know that we need to be there and we need to understand and be on the same process, really, on the same level. And that's what sort of working as a team, whether you're doing something on the creative team or whether you're working in Salon, super, super important that you're working very closely with your colorist. And Josh understands hair cutting and I understand some basic colour, very basic colour. What about sort of colour placement as well? That's super, super important. Where the colour's going to sit within the haircut, or vice versa.
So you talked about that, and you thought through how much graduation you put it in, what length you're going to, where the placement should.
Exactly. Very, very closely. So I almost wanted like a little bit of a sort of a halo, a little bit of highlight really underneath. But once it moves, and Chelsea, she can wear her sort of slightly messy, or she could wear it up, or she could tuck it. You can actually see some of the colour sort of slightly diffused. So it's in there, but it's not crude. It's very subtle, very beautiful as well. And that's very, very, very sort of clever placement, colour placement. Very clever.
Yeah, it's almost timeless, isn't it? It's almost kind of a client friendly.
Definitely.
So at what point, Oliver, would you say, having been through the training program, at what point would you say you kind of get it? When would you be understanding this kind of a haircut? You know, and do you think in the 3 years training that you went through in Mahogany, do you think you finish it and you're ready to go, or do you think it actually the process that you sort of qualify and then you start again?
I think I'm still learning now, right this second.
It's true, huh?
Very true, yeah. But I think that the 3 years we do at Mahogany is it's pushing you to pushing your boundaries. You learn very, very basic at first, and then I would say this is more of a, like I said, this is salon friendly haircut, maybe salon creative, the way I've gone about it. But you're going through the basics. It's all about those sort of 7, 8 classics of one length, layering, graduation. And you need to really understand that and zone in on it and work at it, work at it, work at it. And then you can move on. You can start moving on to sort of shifting technique and shape into something different. So I think those 3 years of really, really learning the classics is super, super important. Just the level of understanding is going to change once you've got that sort of classic technique and shape behind you.
Yeah, I think you have to have that foundation, don't you, before you can move on to anything more creative.
Definitely. So I'm going to just lightly iron the hair, very, very lightly, just so I can check it more than anything. So there's not a lot I can say about straightening hair, which is quite boring actually.
It's a process, isn't it?
But again, sort of bleached hair, we're going to be very, very gentle. So irons in, and we're going to go over it twice. That's it. It doesn't really need it, but it's a sort of a polish more than anything. It's to make the shape just sort of turn under beautifully. And I'm not going in sort of too small sections again because of texture and the colour. I don't want to overdo it. Very gently.
So, Oliver here is a fantastic teacher. You can hear his enthusiasm and the levels of understanding, and I think the what's important is the care about education as well. When you're an educator, you've got to want to have that thing where you want to hand over your knowledge. So the basic way we go through our training is we start out from a cutting point of view. One length, longer hair, into long layers, and then progressing into shorter layers, square and round, and then eventually moving into graduation, because that's always the confusion point. And we stick to our 7 classics that you can get online. You can download these haircuts. We stick to them really quite closely, like there's no other way of cutting hair. Once the assistant gets that, and once it's embedded, and that knowledge is embedded in their mind, and they can simply go through the process, then what I'll then do is start to pull them away and say, okay, I've told you for 3 years there is no other way to cut hair. Well, there is. And then I'll do things like, for example, put guidelines into the haircut in another place, which will really confuse them and make them think. For example, how Oliver's worked this haircut. We will follow this very technique, and it's very structured and it's very technical. When I'm getting towards the end of his training, what I might do is come over and give a guideline in the front and say, okay, work it from there. Which makes these guys just think about it and think about overdirection and angle of fingers and how you go through the process. So, that's the kind of way we go through. I think as we're now getting, I wanted to wait until we could see the iron shape and see the colour coming through. Could we maybe bring Josh Cowan, who's our head of colour and the manager of this Turtle Street Salon. Josh, do you want to come in and just explain what you've done to this beautiful colour?
Well, so talking colour, Chelsea's coming today with 6-month grown out highlights, which is just kind of a little bit over processed, kind of bleach on the ends. So because we're doing a bob shape, we want quite a global colour. So I do think a bob is better classic when it's just one colour, but we've added a panel to kind of put a bit of a young twist on it at the same time. So it's still kind of classic shape, but kind of a bit of a pop of colour just to show off how sharp the outline is. We did a virgin Rigo application of bleach with her, so kind of mid-length and ends, like with 20 bulb for 20 to 30 minutes, back in with the roots for extra 30. Just checking it, we don't really want to go over an hour, just to make sure we get as much lift as possible. We've toned it using L'Oreal. We're a L'Oreal Salon with direct chest, this 901 in clear, so I can monitor the tone so it doesn't go too much, because we still want it to look clean, we still want it to look bright, we don't want it to look grey. In regards to the panel, I've just taken a half moon section on kind of the heavier side, which I've gone for a rose gold, which is 0.26 in direct chest L'Oreal. a silver, which is 0.11, also in direct chest, and just for like a little bit of extra to kind of bring everything together, a bit of 0.26, so it's a bit of kind of a rose gold / pinky mix. So everything is pretty soft, pretty muted. It's not taking anything away from the bleach that she does have. It will fade eventually, so she will be left with a nice clean platinum result at the end of that, but it's just something so we can just show off the sharp lines really.
Looks beautiful, Josh. And I think, as well as the colour tone that's stunning, the condition looks good. I think that's pretty key as well, isn't it?
I think it's hard with a bleach because with a bob it's such a sharp, thick outline. You want the emphasis for having a bob is to kind of give the illusion that hair is thicker or make it kind of look quite solid and quite healthy. So with a bleach, the ends are always going to get a bit terry. So anyone that has this, we always recommend generally a shorter haircut if you can't maintain looking after hair when it is that process. Yeah, and just generally anyone that has kind of finer hair, it does instantly add like density, it makes hair feel fuller, the cuticles are a lot more swollen, so you generally will get a lot of fuller. Like we have a lot of clientele that come in just purely have bleach highlighters purely to change the texture of the hair, not so much the actual colouring in itself.
Fantastic. And Josh, I've touched on explaining a little bit, very, very simply, on the haircutting. Could you explain the colour process of training? And very simply?
Yeah, so kind of, it's sort of like 3 years, like Oliver said, kind of the basics at first are kind of understanding kind of depths and tones, why people's hair does what it does. Like, I've always wondered why I always have loads of red in my hair, and also you learn that people just have different pigments in their hair. Chelsea's hair is naturally a bit fairer than mine, so the only thing you ever have to worry about is hers where it's that little bit of yellow, which a bleach will be perfect for her, whereas mine is a lot more effort. I have like red to get through, orange to get through, all these other things that you have to go through. Like if you see someone with a bleach on the street and it's bright yellow, then you train here and realise that they just haven't put a toner on their hair. There's a whole process and extra bits you'd never know at home. Training, start with kind of semi-permanent, demi-permanent colours. We do like a good 6 months of that, so we can understand kind of the basics of kind of wash in, wash out colouring, grey coverage, what we want, what people's hair is like, and how we get it to look like something else. And then we go into more permanent fixtures, and then we go into highlights, which is obviously more of a technique as well as learning how to lift hair to the right, to kind of degree that you want, and kind of keeping hair healthy. And then once you get more to the back end of training, it's more like fashion colours, or kind of the fun stuff where you can just kind of do anything you want really. Like we live in a world where nothing is really like, we don't really get particular colours anymore. Like if you see someone on the street with like pink hair, it's not actually that shocking anymore. It's like the actual maybe colouring of pink is what you pick up on, but like it's a bit of a free-for-all now. Anyone can really do anything. So that's kind of where we get to that later training. So the basics first, following on, and then get to like the fun stuff at the end, which because people do that now, we do get a lot of, generally good 50-50 of creative and your normal day-to-day. Things like here, like this is just a platinum bob, but like it looks really bright. So even though it's quite just, I wouldn't say like one of kind of like a basic haircut, but it is kind of one just a strong structured haircut. But like the colour completely changes it. Like it really does complement.
Yeah.
So it's even having kind of that panel here just emphasises how sharp that line is. Like we say that anyone could cut a bob, but you'll see how precise this is by when that colour is on the line.
And looking at this colour coming through, it's really beautiful. It just really, it's that process, isn't it, of a haircut's not enough. A colour's not enough. They need to marry together, don't they, to give it that strength and that beauty and that statement.
I think even with like colour choice, it's like skin tone. Like this would never work if I just threw like green or blue in her hair. It doesn't work. So I think if the colour choices to go to match kind of to put a bit of like colour into her skin. So where kind of a bleach can almost slightly pale you out sometimes, even those little tweaks can put so much more back into your hair at the same time. And I think like violets and pinks perfectly complement like ashy tones anyway. So we just get them pastel so they are itself.
And I guess from a salon point of view, if you were placing this colour, that flash of colour would just create that interest, wouldn't it? From a client point of view, it's going to attract business to you.
Oh, 100%. I think it's because things like this as well, like if something's really well done, someone's always going to ask you.
Yeah.
Like if someone sees a great haircut, like in the street, they're always going to ask you because they want to know where you got that done and where can they get the same. So like, it is your own business, like, isn't it? Like as good as job you do is what comes back to you. So that's why it's worthwhile just putting 1,000% effort in every time. And even things like this, we have clients that have just are older that just have white grey hair and you just want a little bit of something different.
Yeah.
That's a bit fun. It's underneath the parting, so it is subtle, but it's something that just makes them feel like they can still do fun stuff in the hair, and like grey hair just isn't done for. Like it can be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. Amen to that, Josh. Thanks, Josh.
Okay.
What are you up to, Mr. Oliver?
So I've just refined the line through here, and I'm going to keep going until I'm very, very happy with it. So using the point to the scissors, just so it's really sort of gentle and soft, and I'm going to say soporific, which is a big word.
It's a very big word, Oliver.
Just to throw it out there. But you can see with the points, you just get this really nice sort of serrated edge. It's super sharp, and I think with Chelsea's hair, it just likes that. I think if I was going to go in and sort of do a bit of this, bit of blunt cutting, it just wouldn't sit as nice. And I don't want it almost too sharp. I want the hair to still move as hair. I think it's got to look and move like hair. And I think with the colour, it does that. It's just being really sympathetic to Chelsea's hair. So at the start, I had this sort of, I would say, rectangle panel, and I let that down and blow dried it. So I'm just going to just lift this hair up a little bit and just make sure I pull it back. I'm going to spin Chelsea around so you can actually see this. So this, again, is just being really, really gentle. I wasn't sure about connect this in. It's only a small amount of hair, but this is super, super important. I didn't want to take too much weight out of the outline, but it needs to come away. So I'm just bringing that back. So I'm working, again, the shape from wet to dry, and I'm just connecting that into my graduation. Everything's coming back. And what that will do is release some of the colour, so you'll be able to see that. So
you're just sort of opening it up slightly?
A little bit, yeah. I wasn't sure about leaving it, but I think it needs it just for, the sort of the hair itself and the sort of the quality that we have.
It's looking beautiful.
Thank you. That's all connected in. We can just give it a little cross check. So cross checking means I came horizontally, I'm doing the opposite thing. So I'm lifting this up vertically. And I do this on a bob, just again, with the actual hair and the quality, we need to release that and make it a bit thicker, a bit fuller. So lifting that up. Again, my fingers are pointing slightly sort of longer at the front. So I'm keeping that length as much as possible. Next section. Onto previous. I'm not over directing, I'm just lifting the hair up and checking quality. Really, really small amounts of hair, but it's super important that we do this just to keep the quality. But you'll be able to see as I lift it up that beautiful colour. There's nothing to come off there, and it should come alive a little bit more. Then let's have a look at the other side.
It's beautiful.
Let me put the chin that way. So everything onto the natural sort of fall of the hair. And then I'm coming from the jaw. Point to scissors. Again for any little bumps that's in the hairline.
Are you pointing at an angle there, are they? Straight into the hair?
Yeah, generally it's like just straight in. I want the sort of sharpest sort of line I can get, but with a little bit of sort of, softness to it as well. You get that sort of like serrated edge slightly.
Slightly more kind of naturalised.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important that it still looks like hair. It's still wearable. Let me push this back. It's what we do when we sort of teaching as well. Everything sort of moves naturally, and clients wear their hair sort of behind the ear, they wear it in front. So you've got to move it into position just to refine it. You can almost do this too much as well. I think sometimes when it looks good, it is good. So natural fall. Okay, I'm just going to lift this up and just check that line is sitting. This is more about the quality as well. You want to sort of make sure the hair is in really, really good condition. Everything's super sharp.
Would you describe yourself as quite technical, Ollie?
I think so. I hope so.
Because I think there's strength in technique and then the hair can move. You know,
Yeah.
relating to what you're talking about, the hair should be able to move and look like hair.
Definitely.
That's never a truer word. And I think if you have that strength in technique, the hair can move, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think you should throw everything at technique before you sort of start drying it, before you play around with it. Then you've got perfect shape. There we go. Right. I'm just going to throw this hair dryer. You can see that little bit of colour, which is a little bit like the picture. A little bit like the picture.
Absolutely is.
There we go. That's the finished result. You've got that sort of sharpness, colour, bit of graduation, bit of movement. If you like it, I will stand Chelsea up.
Yeah, let's
Do you want to
take
take
it down and stand up.
And we'll do a little recap. Beautiful.
Fabulous.
So just spin round for me. Really nice sort of sharp outline, but everything moves, everything is soft, but really quite clean. Diagonal graduation, starting from centre back, working into horizontal, so building that weight here into beautiful, beautiful colour. Had a little bit of a rectangle shape through there. We dried that off, refined this, so everything still moves, everything open up, which works with Josh's beautiful colour. The other side, you got this slight sort of asymmetry, but yeah, a really beautiful salon friendly little shape. Hope you like
It's
it.
gorgeous, Ollie.